Welcome back to Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast, where life, sports, and medicine intersect. We're very glad that you continue to support this podcast. You can get the information on any platform where podcasts are played, as well as getting the video content on YouTube. But if you want to just get one place to find all the content, go to my website at drderrick.thesportsdoctor.com, and you will find everything on that website. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast. I want to first just start off by thanking everyone for all the support and the outpouring of love that I received, during my birthday week. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to me to know that I have so many people who are supportive of not only me and what I have, the initiatives I have going on this podcast, but also of my career and of my family. I must say that this has been a very interesting week. Both, like I said, celebrating a birthday and just really appreciative of having my health and sound mind and ability to do what I love and do. Being in a time of transition and many, ups and downs, very emotional week. We're going to talk more about the transition. Not quite time yet to completely talk about all the details. But before we talk about kind of the transition or what I'm going through professionally, I want to talk about how we got here. Because many times on this podcast, we talk about achieving your dreams and about setting goals and the mindset that it takes to achieve success. But sometimes I think you can miss the backstory. And if, you're not on the front seat, if you're on the back row and just kind of occasionally tuning in, you might have missed what's really transpired in my life over the last year. Back at the beginning of football season, I said, come along, I'm going to take you on this really just kind of wild ride that I've been on with covering Jackson State, and, being able to show you some behind the scenes in locker room videos and as we traveled around to different stadiums. But how did I get there is the question. So, many times in general, when we meet someone who's successful or who have achieved a significant amount of success, it's hard to truly identify with them because they almost seem untouchable, especially if you don't know the backstory. So what I would like to do is kind of give you the backstory of how I ended up where I am in 2022. Over this last year, I would say pretty much exactly a year ago, things began to formulate from dreams and things that I put in motion really 2 years previous. So when I say it started off as a dream, literally in December of 2022, I began some discussions with some colleagues about covering football at Jackson State University. And really the thought behind it was we were seeing inadequacies, or we were seeing holes in coverage sometimes, especially at the historically Black colleges and universities. And one thing that's really been highlighted, especially during the time at Jackson State with Coach Prime, was some of the disparities that were between the Power Five conference and some of the historically Black colleges and universities. And one of those is from infrastructure, from facilities, from training rooms, and a lot of it is also from the medical coverage or the facilities, especially that they have. So the group just kind of put our heads together. How can we help? All right. So let's rewind back to December of 2022, or December of 2020. Had some initial meetings with the university, but it was very far-fetched. How are we going to provide care remotely, right? Is this even possible? So some people kind of jumped on board and said, yeah, I think this is possible, but many people didn't really believe that it was possible. Now, to be honest, wasn't much to believe in, because being covered by one of the largest orthopedic practices in the state, also living remotely, how would we ever pull this off? had some initial meetings, things seemed promising, but then you're in the middle of a pandemic and things went just silent for a full year. Now let's fast forward to February of 2022. February 2022, phone rings with an opportunity to, hey, we need help with coverage. All right. So number one, is this ideal time? Absolutely not. My wife has just launched a dental practice. I have a full-time job and I have 3 children and I live approximately an hour and a half or so away. So how could this ever be? However, sometimes when you pray for things, they don't always manifest in the time or in the fashion that you would possibly think that they would. So this is something, as I mentioned, that I've been praying for and that I've been actually seeking God for. And then when it manifests, because it's not a perfect situation, what are you going to do? So that's one thing I want people to hear. We talk about dreams, and we want them to be clean and well packed, but they don't always reveal themselves like that. So I had an opportunity and I had a decision to make. Do I wait for a time when this fits better in my schedule and fits better in my life, or do I seize the opportunity? So I chose the latter. I chose to seize the opportunity. Now, let's just say if I said, well, the time is not really right now, let's come back to me, call me next year. Next year, it's a different situation, right? So I never would have been a part of the Coach Prime era at Jackson State University, which has moved on. Now we're under the direction of Coach T.C. Taylor, and I'm still very excited about the future and things that are going to transpire this year. But that opportunity would have totally passed me. So I seized the opportunity, as I mentioned. How did I pull it off? It's hard to even say at times, balancing a home life with a family, balancing a job, as well as traveling every weekend was very challenging, but very rewarding. And I learned during that to be able to, that, you always think you have limits, but many times you can exceed your expectations. So I recall this first time I went to Jackson State campus, it was February 25th, 2022. I know that because I had a speaking engagement the night before, and it was 2 days before my birthday. And that was the first time, met with the staff, met with Coach Prime, met with the training staff, just kind of shared what the responsibilities would be like, what some of the expectations were. And one thing that I learned from being on this staff and working under the coaching staff was, there was nothing that went unnoticed, right? Everyone was held to a high standard. Everyone was expected to perform at a high level. And this really impacted me a lot. It made me to start thinking indifferently about my own goals and aspirations. It made me appreciate being in the room with excellence. And it really was that across the board, holding people to a higher standard, from the players to the training staff to the camera crew. Everyone was held to a high standard. And I think we know the outcome of that. When you hold people to a high standard, you will usually get what you demand. And that was a great season, a once in a lifetime experience, which I'm very appreciative for, that opportunity, because it will never be the same again. So I just want people to understand that you have to sometimes seize the moment. One thing, I was there mainly on a game day basis. I wasn't around practice a lot. So, people will always ask, what was it like? You notice I have not talked much about my experience with Coach Prime or with the training staff, but it was one that I will not forget. And, I thought about the fact that some people ask, did you get pictures? Did you get signatures? No, because that wasn't my job. Truthfully, I was able to be there to hear every pregame speech, to be able to witness the interaction. So I have that memory. And truthfully, pictures would be to show you that, or to maybe justify or get approval of what I was able to do by showing pictures to others. And that made me think about something that Dr. Eric Thomas talks about. I heard at one time on his podcast, he was talking about, we go to these conferences with best-selling authors, some of the top motivational speakers, and people would rather hang out in the green room to try to catch a photo of one of the stars or whoever they want to show that they have an affiliation with, versus actually being in the room where the information is given. And that really rang true, or rang loudly to me, because that's true. Many times people will rather show that they have an affiliation with someone than really try to embrace the moment, or really try to get the important information that's being given out. I said all this because now, once again, after having that opportunity, other opportunities open up. And still, decisions are always hard. Anytime that you make a decision, other people are going to be impacted by that decision, some positively, some negatively. But what I've learned is that, when it comes time to make a important decision, who are you going to look out for? Are you going to look out for your family, for yourself, or are you going to look out for others? So I just want you to know that that's kind of where I am right now. And I mentioned that this season, we've been now on this podcast for over a year and a half. And I mentioned that I'm going to start to reveal more about me, more about the things. I realized that my mindset is kind of what's gotten me to the point, because I've overcome many obstacles over the years. From, I've mentioned many of my failures, from struggles with standardized tests, to not matching in orthopedics, to having to leave a job early in my career, and then landing on another job, that from first look might have not been ideal, but it was one that I grew, and one that I was able to really get involved in the community and learn how to be a physician, and learn how to be a team physician, and really be able to make a positive impact and build something to be proud of. And I do not take that for granted at all. But, with growth comes hard decisions. That's kind of where I am right now. So we're going to talk about more. I'm going to, invite you in once again to kind of see what's going on behind the scenes with me. And that's something that kind of will be revealed over the next couple of weeks to months. So stay tuned. This might not make a lot of sense right now, but I wanted to just give you a little backstory about things don't just happen by chance, right? You pray about things, you seek God for things, and sometimes it's revealed all at once, but sometimes it's revealed in a series of actions. And that's literally what I've been experiencing over the last year. And I'm very grateful for every experience I've had. I'm very grateful for every challenge that I had to overcome. I'm very grateful for, my family, because this was truly a team effort. My wife sacrificed so much over the last, year. My children sacrificed so much for the last year. I mean, I missed about half of my son's football games because of travel. And that's, with everything that you achieve and everything that you do, something's going to be sacrificed. But I try to be present as much as possible. I mean, I took on a coaching job for basketball, instead of being on a golf course or out doing things that I want to do. Is many times coming home straight from work to be able to go to practice, go sit at the ballpark, go pick up a child from dance. But these are sacrifices that I make because of the love for the family, number one. But also I want to be present. I don't want to be looking back where they say, wow, my dad did so much, but he was never around to see us, or never around for our performance, or never around to watch us play. So those are all things that you have to sacrifice along the way as well. So I just want, to share that, because I know that someone else is going through something similar. And like I mentioned, we're going to continue to try to give you helpful tips and helpful information on this podcast to make you, to give you the tools that you need to achieve whatever level of success you want. So I don't know, this might have been a little rambling, but I did want to give you that backstory so you can better understand me as a person, me as a father, me as a husband, me as a physician, and what I have and goals that I have to achieve. So what I ask of you is that I have a survey for this podcast because I want to know what kind of content you're interested in hearing. What do you want to hear more of? What do you want to hear less of? Interview styles. What do you like? So if you don't mind, 5-question survey, it take you less than 3 minutes to fill it out. The link to the survey is in the show notes, as well as you can go on Instagram, click the Linktree app. It'll take you right to the survey. Please fill it out to give me information to help me help you, right? So that I can provide helpful information for you on this podcast. So once again, this is not by chance that I'm where I am in life. It's not by chance where I am in my career currently. It's not by chance where we're headed. So, I'm glad that you're here. I ask that you please stay tuned with us as we try to bring you meaningful information and helpful information so we can all rise together, so to speak. Well, until next week, stay tuned. Peace. Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace. Time out with the sports doctor. Keep our head right in the game. We ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in. Trust you don't want to miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine.